All right, welcome back to another Workshop Wednesday. My name is Lori Graham, and I am the VP of Operations for the Home Staging and Redesign Alliance. You see me here every week, and today I have two very special guests that are going to literally save your home staging and redesign business. So welcome, Joe and Victor from Villanova Insurance Partners. We're so glad to have you here today. How are you guys doing?
Great. Glad to be here.
Great, Laurie. Thanks for having us.
Woohoo! Well, I hear that you guys have a new product that's especially for the staging industry. So I have tons of questions to ask you today about that. But if you want to kind of start off with just explaining who you are and what you guys do, I think that'd be fantastic.
Sure. My name is Victor D'Angelo. I'm the COO of Villanova Insurance Partners. I'm partners with Joe. Joe being the lead, our lead counsel for Villanova Insurance and the head of claims of the product that we're about to share with you. We're really excited. We've done a soft launch up until this point, and it is a product specifically for stagers and interior designers. And for tailor-made. We've been in the industry for quite some time. We're experts at this line of business, and especially niche businesses. Joe has been a litigator for years in the insurance business, and we put together, knowing all the products that are out there because we represented them, the best policy that that can be, and for the best price, we believe. And we think we filled all the holes and gaps. We're not going to get into the minutia that'll bore the heck out of you guys, but we do have a fantastic product. And the thing that really sells, and Joe can talk more about this, is the same people who are selling you the insurance, because it's our own company. You don't have to deal with a third-party carrier like a Traveler, CNA, Hanover. The same people selling you the insurance, which is us, is the same people settling the claims, which is Joe's team, who's right down the hall from me.
Well, that's amazing. I love hearing that.
Joe, you're on mute. Sorry.
Oh, is he talking? Joe?
No, we're good. We're fine. I thought I was getting a little feedback. I didn't want to give you feedback.
All right, gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, we are streaming live on a couple of different areas. And if you have that up, then I'll probably give the feedback too, unless you're in the same room, which I don't think you guys are. So
No.
Awesome. Okay, well, let's just jump into this. This is so amazing. And we are going to have the link for you guys. We have it here on our screen, but we will also update this recording as soon as it's over with this link, so you can reach out directly to them and ask any additional questions and start that process. So first of all, gentlemen, what is currently going on now in the insurance for stagers?
Yeah, so, one of the reasons we wanted to create our own product, Laurie, is that we started noticing that, and, I'm on the front lines of this. They get escalated to me when people are in trouble. They have claims that aren't being handled by insurance companies. We had a few this year, and, we wanted to be the voice of reason when it comes to, hey, you're paying good money for insurance. You think you're covered, but hey, an insurance carrier is going to find some loophole to say, we're not going to cover you. It just doesn't make sense to us. So that's one of the motivations for us, as well as we want to keep you out of trouble. That's part of what Joe's team does. Is so when you sign up, and anybody that's out there that's part of our team, you may be currently we may have placed you with a Hanover, Travelers, whatever, because that's what we were selling. We're now starting to roll out our own captive product. But one of the things that we do is we give you risk management tools, and that's what Joe's team does with subcontractor agreements, and pre-claims assistance. I'll let him talk about those things.
So essentially, what we did is we created an entire insurance company just for people we want to insure, which in this case are professional stagers and designers and decorators. Usually when you're buying insurance, you're buying it from an agency. You have your local insurance agent, or you're dealing with a monolith like, Progressive or Travelers, or a company that doesn't know you from anybody else, that insures millions and millions of people and all different kinds of risks. And we thought, given our expertise, it would be a lot better if we just focused on the things we know best. And one of the things we've been very successful with and do know best is the insurance product for, design and decorator professionals and organizer professionals. And we created this captive insurance company so that we would have full control over not just the pricing and how the product works, but on the claims as well, because that's really where the rubber meets the road. You could have a claim mishandled by a carrier and end up being uninsurable at some point. So what we did is we decided not only are we going to own the risk, so we're putting our, essentially, truthfully, our money where our mouth is. We believe so much that we can do this better than anybody else that we just built the company ourselves. And so we can manage everything from the pricing right down to if you have a claim or if you need a letter written to somebody explaining why there's not a claim. Everything happens right under the same roof. Just a little background on me. For 20 years before I did this, I was a litigation attorney, handling claims for insurance companies that they would assign me to represent their insurance professionals. And my expertise is in real estate professionals, and that's why I'm doing this. And we've built a system based on agreements that we've crafted and created with the help of stagers. We're not just out there winging it. We're actually getting the feedback from people who do this. And we created agreements to insulate the businesses from liability, to help better the relationship between the professional and the client, and to set certain parameters. And when a claim comes up, we've been doing this for a very long time, and we know exactly how to handle it efficiently and practically so that it has the least impact on you as a professional and the least disruption to your business.
Laurie, let me give you an example real quick. And I'm just speaking generalities, but we had a claim come up this year. And one of the things we actually wanted to touch on as an educational piece that we're trying to get out there, which are oily rags, right? We've had a few oily rag claims this year. And essentially, if you are a stager and you're out there and you're refurbishing your contents, your staging contents, whatever it might be, and using oil-based products, please don't put the rags in a pile in the corner somewhere, or in a trash can. They need to be air dried if it's an oil-based solution, not a water-based. And it seems silly that we're going on this tangent, but it is a thing. We've had a few claims. This one was not in our captive yet. It was with one of our carrier partners. And just to give you, kind of the horror story side of it, they were going to deny the claim because simply the location was not listed on the policy. The people had been paying for coverage. They were paying the amount of coverage, the premium appropriate for the amount of coverage, which was like $500,000 for just staging injury. And they wanted to point to some minutia that they never had this location listed on the policy. And it was just something Joe and I talked about. We're like, this is crazy. We went to bat for them with this carrier. And we ended up getting the claim after a lot of, turmoil, getting it covered. But this was the type of thing that Joe and I, when we were talking, is, we would cover all day long. We wouldn't even have gotten to the point. This person, our client, essentially was sitting there with a fire mess, water damage, and stuff could have been salvaged sooner, quicker. She lost more material because it had been sitting there and rotting basically, and not moved out of because she didn't know what to do. So this is where we're like, hey, we can be doing this so much more efficient. We can handle these types of things. So that's, I wanted to give you an example of the type of thing that we really want to approach.
That's so cool. I don't know if you heard a quote one of my past bosses used to always tell me is, Lori, the devil's in the details, right? And he was a real estate attorney as well. So he would always tell me that on our contracts, on everything we did, it was always very specific. He would always, that always rings true in my head, is like the devil's are in the detail, the devil's in the details of each and everything. And so I know that a lot of people that one of the groups we're streaming this into right now are the newer stager. And I know this wasn't kind of on all the questions that we were going to ask, but I think it's important for those who are just starting their staging business, or they're like what we call a phase one staging company. That means they're wearing all the hats. They're probably not even making any money. They're not hiring stagers yet. What just to kind of, maybe we're backtracking a little bit, can you just kind of give them an overview of why they need your services? Why is it so important for them to, I can probably say there's a lot of people in the group that don't even have insurance. Or there's a lot, and as another topic is that maybe they're not even a legitimate company. But, when we're thinking about insurance, we've had so many masterminds. You guys have been at our summits and people are like, oh, you need that. So real quickly, before we jump into the next question, can you guys just kind of speak to those people who are like, I don't want to pay for the insurance. I don't need it. I just do a little bit here and there.
It's kind of the same thing that law clients would tell me when I was a litigator and a partner in a firm, that nobody really wanted to talk to us until they had to talk to us. And that's the unfortunate thing, not only about insurance, but about the law in general, is you can't go back and erase your mistake. And if you're new to the business, the last thing you can afford is a disruption. And not having insurance and having a claim, or not just the insurance part of it, but the risk management part of it too, is having the right agreements to make sure that the engagements you're taking on are something that you can do, and that somebody can't take advantage of you, or making sure that you have an agreement that's written so that if you don't get paid, you can go get your money in court and interest, and all the things that as a new business person are really the last things on the list, right? That you're trying to get business, you're trying to build inventory, build a clientele. Those are very difficult things. So why leave this other thing out there that can disrupt all that? And for literal pennies. And what we strive to do, which is different than anybody else, is we work exclusively with a particular profession and become experts in that field. And we will make sure that you're perfectly insulated at a price that's more, that makes sense based on the level of your work. But the last thing you want to have is an occasion where you've got inventory, maybe you're renting it from somewhere and you leave it at a site and it gets damaged. And then what is your recourse? And how are you going to deal with the claim by the company that owns the staged item that you now have to reimburse? Or if you own your own stuff, the last thing you want is things destroyed and you being unable to replace them to go do another job. All these things can be protected against and insulated against with insurance, but not just insurance, but with a risk management partner that's there to walk with you, with the hand on the shoulder and say, hey, we have you in case something goes wrong.
Yeah, that kind of segues into also the reason we wanted to do this. We want to be the small business partner and expert for this. You guys are creatives. You have your own business. You can't be thinking of every single thing, accounting, obviously legal and insurance. So as Joe was saying, so we're talking, we'll talk turkey here. For a new stager with minimal inventory, you're talking, and it depends on the state and everything, so don't quote me here, but we're talking like $300 to $500 for an annual policy and risk management. Joe's team, everything, maybe 600. I don't know. It depends on the state, but we have premiums that are low as $350, $400. So you're talking for an annual cost to have peace of mind of $1 million of liability coverage, $1 million of professional liability coverage, and your staging inventory. It would be crazy not to.
Yeah, that's so good. And it's so important too. And, I can tell you, because I've talked to so many home staging business owners in every level, phase 1 to phase 3. And really, because our industry, as you guys probably know, has been on the struggle bus to be deemed as a legitimate industry. I mean, we are still trying to control the narrative in the real estate industry that home staging is a real thing. Every agent company mostly thinks it's some, wife doing something on the, part-time on the side while the kids are at school. So I love that you're for the stagers. And, our industry is 90% women, and we do need someone to put their hand on our shoulder or to walk beside us and just say, I've got you, you're covered. Like really, the more we can talk to stagers as they're building their business and give them these tools. Like you said, we partner with JSJ Consultants. They specialize in bookkeeping for stagers, because as you know, just like with insurance, you call some insurance agencies, they don't know what a stager is. So what do? You know, they have those conversations with them. And so protection is so important to grow your business and to grow it well, and to be smart about that. And so, Joe, you had mentioned something about contracts and contractors and all the different hands that are in the stage. As we know, so many of the stagers have gotten to properties and there's contractors in there. They haven't finished the floors, they haven't finished painting, or they're just installing the appliance. So why should every stager have a service contract, and what should be in that document?
So your basic service agreement is, it's the agreement between you and your end client. And ideally, it should explain to the client what you're there to do. Now, your profession is somewhat unique in the sense that you're not telling somebody, hey, I'm going to come in here, I'm going to do X, Y, or Z. You can't put that down in a contract. What your intellectual property essentially really is, which is your instincts and your experience and your design abilities and stage abilities. It doesn't always translate that well to an agreement, but ideally the agreement should at least say, here's the services we're going to provide at this price. In your business, if you're renting furniture, it should address the furniture rental. But even if it's not your stuff and you're bringing it from a third party, the agreement ideally should also protect you and insulate you against a claim related to those things. So in our form agreement, for example, it makes it incumbent upon the property owner as really the controller. They're the gatekeeper of who's in and out of the property. Then it puts the onus on them, to secure your things because you can't be there. And they have people coming in and out. They may have contractors. We have provisions in there that deal with the idea that we can't be responsible for what those third parties on the site might do. Or, hey, if we're ready to go on the date we're set to go and we get there and it's not ready to be staged, we're going to be compensated for that. Or this is going to cause a delay that's going to be the responsibility of the client. And it's important that those things are set out up front with the client. And even then, we still have some trouble, right? Some people just don't read the things we put in front of them before they sign it. But with our agreement, we've written it in such a way, we understand that the average American reads at a 7th, 8th grade reading level. I have a former 8th grader going into high school, and I have an older daughter. And so I've worked with a lot of 7th to 8th graders. And so we try to make the agreement simple enough that anybody and everybody can understand exactly what's in there. And it also needs to, in terms of price terms, it needs to be specific. Are you going to charge interest if you're not paid on time? What happens if the things have to stay there for longer than the contract addresses? All those things can be built into there, so there's no guessing. There's no surprises on either side. And then we also build in some controls in terms of this. If there's a claim against you, can it be limited in dollar amount based on the amount you charge for the service? And again, about the stuff, making sure somebody's not going to be sleeping on the bed you put there or on the couch, or using the things that you stage there. All those things should be in your service agreement. Because that will ultimately control what happens if you do have a legal dispute. We also do subcontractor agreements because a lot of our insureds do use third parties to help them. In that case, they're bringing the third party to the site rather than, encountering the third party at the site. And those agreements have to be specific. That third party should be insuring you against loss if they cause damage. And so all those things should be in these agreements when they're dealt with up front. So there's no confusion, no surprises. And so the stager or designer is fully insulated from any silly claims, any claims that can be easily avoided.
And so as part of our services, Laurie, we provide, when you join, and if you're already part of it, you've received this, a service contract that Joe has created and a subcontractor agreement right off the jump, or you can have yours reviewed if you're like, hey, I've been working on this one for years. I really like it. Or I had a lawyer do it 5 years ago, but I wouldn't mind it getting tuned up. Joe's team will do that and review it as part of our services for it.
And we'll add things if you have something unique about your business that doesn't fit into the four corners of our form agreement. Myself and my team will go through it with you and add things that you need to add because they're important to you. And not every business is the same, and not everybody does things the same way. And so we have to be agile too, in order to help our people. And so we're happy to work with you and tune up your contract however you need however you need it done.
Awesome. Well, I love that. And I cannot tell you how grateful, like, I know for our staging business, we are for people who are offering service like you, JSJ, that want to specialize in staging, because it's so confusing and it's so hard. And honestly, most of us are creative, so our attention span to the legal stuff is very, very short, right? And we always tell people, you always want to hire in your weaknesses. So every person has a gift and talent, and they're really good at what they do, but the things that you're not good at, you need to hire those people so that you can do the things that you're called to do. So a big thing that we get asked about all the time is 1099 employees. So I was thinking maybe we can kind of jump into that, and then, like, what's the difference between the W-2 and the 1099?
Sure.
Yeah, so Joe and I have done several speaking events on this. We've just did one that took an hour and 20 minutes, so we obviously don't have that amount of time. But in short, we see this all the time in fields where people are smaller, they need to sub out. And I think the biggest thing that I want to, in my part of this, and then I'll let Joe, add his knowledge on it, is that be careful when claiming that someone's a 1099 for several reasons. One is obviously there's legal ramifications. There's ramifications with the state and federal taxes and payroll taxes. But if you're telling it's based around control, if you control that person, and there's a criteria, you can actually go online and Google what makes a 1099 employee. There's a list of criteria that the IRS or state government might use to say, do you have control of this employee? And basically it's like, do you tell them where to go? Do you tell them when to show up? Or do they have the ability to work for other people? Do they have their own equipment, or are they using yours? There's a bunch of criteria, and a lot of people, let's be honest, they're doing it to save money. They don't want to pay payroll tax. They don't want to pay insurance, all work comp, all the things that would be added cost because they're just starting up, and it's a reasonable thought. There are people that you can subcontract out for. You subcontract out with your movers, and they probably move for other people too. That's fine. That is a 1099 situation. Make sure you have a subcontractor agreement, as Joe just pointed out, and make sure they have insurance. It's real easy to say, oh, this guy is great. He's just a one-man band, or it's just him and his kid or his brother. They're fine. They don't need insurance. They'll never sue me. But if someone gets hurt on the job, where it really comes to light is when someone gets hurt on the job. And with moving furniture, that could be a very plausible situation, right? So someone gets hurt and they got to go to the hospital. They didn't have work comp, or their employee got hurt. They don't have work comp. They're gonna get a lawyer, or the hospital is going to start looking to get their bills paid. Yeah. They start asking questions like, why don't you have comp? Who are you working for? And that's where you can get into even a bigger jam.
Yeah, I mean, from federal tax, at the very least, let alone state tax, because you're essentially claiming that this person is not an employee. And when something like that happens, as Vic was describing, the dominoes start to tip, right? And so, at some point, somebody's going to find out that taxes should have been paid, or work comp should have been had, and they may make a call to the IRS. And at that point, now, in addition to trying to run your business, you're dealing with attacks from all sides. And so it's important that if somebody's really under your control and you're using them all the time, and they're doing the same thing for you all the time, and you're telling them how to do the job and where to be, like Vic said, and they're not doing it for anybody else, chances are they should really be a W-2 employee for whom you should be paying, payroll tax as well as workers' compensation insurance in most places. And especially if you're in California, you already know what that feels like. And they've taken a very, very hard stance against professionals that use people as 1099s that should be recalculated as W-2. And so it's definitely not worth the risk. There's a lot of ramifications, and we can always talk about that too. If anybody who's with us, Victor and I have a whole seminar just on 1099 employees.
Nice. So all of that to me already gives me anxiety just thinking about it. So I can imagine what so many of our business owners must feel. And we do hear from that. You know, we get asked that question a lot of time in our masterminds that we have. And because we're nationwide, we have people from different states. So like California is different than Texas, and Texas is different than Florida or North Dakota or whatever. And so I think having you guys as a resource to be able to make sure that you're in compliance, that you're doing things right. And it is true, like so many stagers, especially those phase ones, they're on the struggle bus trying to get their business up and running, and they're trying to cut corners, you know, by not doing, you know, maybe not bringing somebody on as a W-2 who works for them every single week, who has 5 jobs every single week, or as your one stager, you know, you give them a job every week, they should be being brought on. Is there any difference if the stager is requesting to stay at 1099? Like I know of a specific situation that somebody actually does help a staging company often. They have their own company too, but they always get hired on as a 1099 because they don't want to be under that employee. So is there anything that our followers should know about that? Like, do they push? Do they just not use that person? Is it okay in certain circumstances?
Well, I mean, one of the factors you mentioned there that would be critical would be that the person who's acting as the 1099 employee has their own company. And if that's the company that's contracted with, you know, the stager that's using them, that creates a level of insulation, and it kind of flips the onus back to the employee to make sure that they have work comp if it's required, and that they're paying the payroll taxes or whatever the taxes might be, you know, as between them and the LLC. You know, generally speaking, the owners of an LLC aren't salaried employees. They take a draw, and so that would all be if they have their own company. That's a different situation that you know mitigates toward being able to use them as a 1099, because you really are subbing it out to another entity at that point. But it's the ones where it's somebody who doesn't have their own entity. They're just, you know, Bob, the person who we hire, or Barb, whatever the case may be, that we hire on a regular basis. That's going to mitigate more toward it being somebody that's being called a 1099, but really is probably a W-2 employee.
Yeah, the most egregious form of it is that you really have an employee and you're calling them a 1099. You know what I mean? They're there working for you every day, and you say, well, I have a subcontractor agreement, and they know they're responsible for themselves. I've heard people say this, you know, they know they're a subcontractor. Well, that's fine that you have this agreement. It's not cool though. It's not legal, because of many reasons. Well, like we've been talking about, taxes, work comp, and all that stuff. If I think Joe talked about gets triggered, you can owe back for years. Payroll tax, work comp, you could owe that person. You could actually owe the person that you had this agreement with for vacation time. You know, like it could be totally turned on it, even though they agreed to this whole relationship.
You know, one of the things with workers' comp in particular is that there's a trade-off there, and that's why the state makes companies have it. Is because the trade-off is that the company can't be sued for negligence by the employee, except in very, very narrow circumstances, if the company buys work comp. And so when you don't have work comp, that 1099 employee gets hurt can sue you for negligence. And I can assure you probably won't have insurance for that. And now you're staring down a litigation matter. And they're going to ask all these questions under oath. You know, did you know that this person should have been W-2? Did you know that you were required to carry this other coverage or pay these other bills? That can be very problematic. And if you're new in the business, I mean, that's lights out.
Yeah, so true. So what happens if you are legitimate 1099 and your 1099 employee gets hurt on the job and doesn't have their own insurance?
So it depends, but that's why you want a subcontractor agreement with that legitimate 1099 that says they'll hold you harmless and indemnify. You have that layer. And really in that contract, you're also going to say, we want you to have insurance. Now you're going to say, now you say, well, I really like this person. He can't either for whatever reason that he doesn't have insurance. He just doesn't want to cover it. Doesn't want to pay the freight. you're technically picking that up on your own work comp if you have it. Our carriers that write work comp, we like to disclose it to them that you might be picking up uninsured subcontractors. So now your work comp's open to them and their employees, or potentially, if your work comp carrier, I guess, declined it, they could come after you from a general, like an action over general liability claim and say that you created an unsafe work environment, and now it's a general liability claim for you, and potentially they might sue the homeowner. Lawyers, sorry, Joe, like to sue everybody when they, so they bring everyone in a suit, find the deepest pockets a lot of times. A lot of the people, get thrown out of it, but there's a lot that could potentially happen there.
If you bad lawyer, lousy case, or with a great case, rather lousy for the stager, but yeah.
Ultimately, we want people to get insured subcontractors. I know that's at odds sometimes with doing everyday business, but that's the moral here, I guess.
But it's also good to ask in advance when you're looking for contractors, right? So it's a great question that they probably didn't even know they should ask, and even considering when you have multiple contractors bidding on a job, right? You would want to ask that, and that's one of the key indicators.
And here's the other thing too. Some people say, well, I just did a seminar like 2 Sundays ago, and I said, how many people, and it was a stager group, and I said, how many people have subs come on then almost all of them raised their hand. And I said, now how many of you have a subcontractor agreement? And it went down to about a half to a third.
They're all
and some of them say, this is what they say, and this is part of that training people new. They say, well, they have insurance, which is great, and they name me as additional insured, and they send me a certificate. If you don't have the agreement, the contractual agreement between the two, there's nothing to trigger that insurance.
That's right. You
need the subcontractor agreement. You need a contractual so you'll push it back on them. You'll say, no, well, that was, they indemnified me, right? And then that insurance company will say, where's the contractual agreement between you that states it? So you need that agreement.
And that's in our standard subcontractor agreement has all that in it. And a representation that, they have the appropriate insurance, or if they have to have work comp, that's in there. And it even says what type of insurance, what rated insurance company, and the limits they have to insulate you from any risk.
Awesome. Well, our time is running out. I feel like this is definitely like an hour session for sure. Like the questions, all of that. And we're going to be seeing them at Summit. So to wrap this up today, what are some things you are either seeing or want to educate our viewers on today that they need to know about? And then definitely we're going to put your link in. We want everyone to reach out to you. Please do this. Even if you just started your business and you're a one-man or woman show, please reach out to them, because I feel like when it comes to insurance, whatever kind, auto insurance, health insurance, business insurance, you have to be covered. So what would be the thing that you most importantly want to share with our audience today?
Definitely to make sure, to make sure your clients always know exactly what you're going to be providing and what the ramifications are if they don't adhere to the things that they're supposed to do as the client, which, primarily is pay you, right? But more importantly, to protect your things. And so it's very important, even if you're not with us and you're not using our agreements, get one done. Please, I want to tell you that even if you have one claim in 10 years, that agreement can save you.
And I would just add to that, it's kind of a nice way to sum up everything is get insurance, get an expert that if it's not us, it should be us, but if it's not us, you should get an expert that's going to help you find the right coverage. There's a lot, I think you mentioned the devil in the details. There's a lot of, you can go online and you can buy, a nothing burger for $100. And when comes time for coverage, it's going to provide nothing. So get an expert that will get you the right insurance, the right contracts in place, and use subcontractors that have insurance. Those are the bullet points I would say.
Awesome. And staging industry, we always talk about how we're helping the realtor to market the property. We're telling the realtor, you need to use us, the staging company, so that we can get you the best deal. And in the same way, you need to use people like Villanova who have your best interest. They want to see you win. So why wouldn't you use them, especially because they specialize in our industry and there's nobody else that's really doing that right now, not that I know of. And so I'm so excited that you guys really honed in on our industry. Super thankful for that. We're going to love to see you back at Summit this year. Have your session, answer all the questions. And if you have any questions in the meantime, we're going to have the link that you can connect directly with them. You can talk to them, ask any questions. They're here to help you. So gentlemen, thank you so much for being on today. Can't wait to see you in a couple months. And we will see you, our viewers, next week, same time, same place. Have a great week.
Thank you.